notes to get that one. So communication, troubleshooting, right? We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier of, how you wire A, B, C, and D, that sort of thing. Zoning and communication troubleshooting is not difficult if you understand the sequence of operation. Okay, it's when we don't understand the sequence of operation that we get to a point where we just don't know what we don't know. Okay, and there's always pressure to make the right call. So here's a properly connected system. User interface comes to my zone board, A, B, C, and D. I'm going over to my fan coil. Okay, the fan coil communicates with the blower. That is part of the communication system. We can't forget that. And then we go to the outdoor unit to communicate. We're also tied into the zone board. Okay, and the zone board communicates with my smart sensors. Okay, in this application, we only have smart sensors which communicate A, B, C, and D. Remember, this is for room sensor. We're not using those in this application. So you can have a couple different configurations. I think most of us probably use this configuration where each is coming back independently. They call that home run. You can go like in a daisy chain configuration here. All right, and we see that explained in the manual. You might see something like this. Okay. It's really your preference. Personally, I think it's much easier and a more solid installation to go with the home run. So that's each individual zone sensor has its own wire coming back. I'm illustrating it on the screen as a single wire to limit how many lines I had to put on the screen, but just know each one is a wire coming back. Okay, so if I have 3 zone sensors, I got 3 wires coming back to it. So communication issue. Okay, what I need to do first is separate zoning and the equipment. It's important to remember with a communication issue, you could have a problem in your outdoor board that's causing an indoor communication fault. You could have a problem with a zone sensor causing an indoor communication fault. So any problem anywhere on your communication bus, A and B, can drag the voltage down for the entire bus. So if you get to that point, indoor communication fault, and you have zoning, the easiest thing to do to try and figure out where the fault lies is separate the zone. Okay, so notice I've taken these 2 wires off the zone board. Okay, and I'm going to put them together. So now I've separated this system. I've cut it in half. Everything over here on the zoning is not connected. Can I communicate with my user interface, the indoor board, the motor, and the outdoor unit? Remember, sequence of operation. User interface looks for the indoor board first. Indoor board talks to the motor and says, "Yay, I got the right motor." And then it looks for the outdoor unit. So let's start there and see if we can find it. Okay. If we still see indoor communication fault now, then I know a lot. I know there's nothing wrong with the zoning side of the system. My fault is going to be somewhere on the equipment side. And so now I have narrowed my focus. Okay. What I would do next, disconnect the outdoor unit. All right, just pull the ABC plug off the board and see, can I talk to my indoor unit now? Okay, if you can, then you've probably got an issue with either the outdoor board or this wire. If you can't, then you could have an issue with the user interface, the wire connecting it, the indoor board, or the motor possibly. But we've narrowed our focus. Okay, what I would do now is take my user interface directly to my indoor fan coil and wire it up with a short piece of wire. Okay, A, B, C, and D. If you don't have any extra of these ABC plugs, you'll have to use the ones that are there on the system, but you can connect it directly to the air handler and see if it communicates. Okay, remember your plug orientation. If I zoom in here, you can see A, B, C, and D. But if you look at the plug, it's backwards, A, B, C, and D. If I plug that on there, I'm going to apply 24 volts to my AB terminals, and I'm going to smoke my user interface. So don't do that. Make sure the orientation of the plug is correct. You'll have to flip-flop this plug 180 degrees, and then it'll be correct. So I do that, okay? And let's say I still have a communication fault. Then what I would do is disconnect my blower motor, okay? And then see if I can communicate again. By that time, you probably would have established communication. It's rare that you get to that point. Every now and then I do get a call that way, but typically you would have found it by then, okay? So just know though, if you get your user interface directly to the air handler, still can't communicate, disconnect the blower motor and try it again. If you continue to have issues, reach out to us and we'll help you, okay? So let's say I back up a little bit, okay? And what I'm going to do now is I've established communication, indoor unit or user interface talking to my indoor unit, talking to the motor. And now I need to determine, is it an issue with my wire between the indoor and outdoor, or is it an issue with the outdoor board? Okay. So what I would do next, connect my user interface outside. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I've done was I've taken my user interface outside. I already have the AB wires going inside. Okay, this is going to the user interface, or I'm sorry, going to the fan coil board. What I need to do is power my user interface from the outdoor board. There's a couple different ways to do this depending on the unit you have outside. Okay, so this particular unit is a 2-stage. Okay, like 25HNB. Okay, you can see I'm going to connect it between UTIL and common. That's where I'm going to get 24 volts. Okay, once I have the 24 volts powering my user interface, I can try to communicate on my AB wire up here. If I can communicate to my indoor unit across this wire, that wire is good, and my problems with the outdoor board. If I can't communicate across the wire, then there's a problem with the wire. Okay. So this board looks similar, but it is not. This is the 24 and 25 VNA 0. If I zoom in on it a little bit, you still have UTIL, but they're separated. They're two different terminals. They're not one terminal on this board. You have UT and COM. All right, so I would grab my 24 volt power there, try to communicate across AB to the indoor unit. If I have the 5-stage, okay, 24 VNA 9, 25 VNA 8, this is a different type of unit. Everything in this unit is a DC voltage. So in this case, it's polarity sensitive, right? AB still going inside. Common is common, okay, but I have to grab 24V, which is actually a DC voltage. If you look closely on this board, you have an R terminal, but there is no 24 volts on that R terminal, okay? So I need to grab it from 24V and common. It's polarity sensitive, connect it correctly, and then begin communicating with your indoor unit. Again, if you can communicate with the indoor unit from outside, you just troubleshoot your wire. The wire is okay. Your problem is going to be with the outdoor board. If you can't communicate inside, then you got a problem with your wire. Last unit, this is the 24 VNA6, 25 VNA4, the new green speed. I say new, it's been around for 3 years now, but the newer green speed, okay? This one's a little different. I'll slide it over. You get the UT and IL connection, but on this one, you have to use IL. That's 24 volts, okay? And this is AC and then common, okay? So IL and common, you're gonna power your user interface from outside, and then we are trying to communicate with the indoor unit. We're troubleshooting this wire, okay? If you can communicate with the indoor unit from outside, then you could have an issue with your outdoor board, okay? So we did that. Let's put the user interface back where it goes. All right, so now we troubleshot communication with the indoor unit, communication with the outdoor unit. Now I know my user interface, my indoor, my outdoor board, those are working. I bring it back into the Infinity Zone system, and hey, guess what? Communication error. Dang it, how long is this job going to take? Next thing I do is disconnect my smart sensors, right? I know this is working. I know these components are good. So I'm getting there. It's just taking some time. Take out the Infinity smart sensors by disconnecting them and see, can I communicate with my zone board? Okay, now I can communicate with the zone board. All right, making progress. The zone board is okay. So now what I'm going to do is bring my zone sensors on one at a time. Okay, I'm going to bring this one on. Can I communicate? All right, I'm communicating. I bring this one on. Can I communicate? I'm still working. I bring the last one on. Indoor communication fault. Okay, so when I connected this one, that was an issue. So I know the problem is on this circuit. What I would do next is get a short piece of wire, take this smart sensor off the wall, connect it directly to ABC on my zone board, and can I communicate then? If I can communicate then my problem's with the wire somewhere. If I can't communicate then, I lose comm with everything, then I got a problem with the sensor. Okay, so it's not too difficult, but like I said, you have to understand the sequence of operation. Remember, user interface looks for the indoor board. Indoor board talks to the motor. We look for the outdoor unit. We find the outdoor unit. Then we look for zoning. We look for the zone board. Then we look for each sensor individually. Okay, and then it will communicate. So I hope that helps you out a little bit with communication troubleshooting.